to call the meeting to order. And each of these sessions we met this morning, each one is a new meeting. So we will follow all of our traditions for people attending this afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Councillor Shelley Carroll, and I'm chair of the Budget Subcommittee. We have quorum, so I'd like to now call this meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. We'll start this session in a good way by acknowledging that while we may be meeting in different locations today, the Budget Committee wants to acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Today's meeting is being held in person in Committee Room 1 at City Hall and also here in the council chambers of North York Community Councils. Members of the public are registered to speak and are in the room with us and also may make their deputations by video conference, and we'll tap them into this room. The meeting is being live streamed, and you can find that link on toronto.ca/council. Are there any declarations of interest from my committee members? Seeing none, we will proceed with the meeting. So we're meeting today as a subcommittee of the Budget Committee. And my council colleagues are here, Councillor Lily Chang and Councillor Jamal Myers. And we're meeting right now in North York Civic Centre at the same time at City Hall. Councillor Perks, Councillor Moyse, and Councillor Morley are hearing deputations from folks downtown. We have a list that I know we can get through this afternoon. We've counted up and multiplied by 5 minutes each, and I know that each and every person registered will have a chance to speak. We do have until 4:30. And so I will say this, if you're an observer or there are people on their way, if they haven't registered to speak, because we have a list we know that we can get through, I will say that between now and 2:30, if you've decided that you do want to speak, just make your way to the clerks that are along the edge of the room there and ask to have your name added to the list if you haven't already spoken or registered in another session. And we should be able to fit you into this afternoon session. So for those speaking, who are speaking, I'll tell you a little bit about how the process works. We have speakers in person and online. So if you are online, the video conference host is going to activate your microphone, and you can turn on your video if you'd like. I'll call each name on the list in order, regardless of whether you've registered to be here or to be virtual. You'll have 5 minutes to speak to the Budget Subcommittee. After you speak, if you're joining us online, after you speak, stay on the line in case members of the committee want to ask you any questions. And after any questions from the committee, you may stay on and listen or follow the rest of the meeting at home on YouTube. The clerk has received emails and communications from the public for the 2026 budget, and those communications are being made available to members, and I mean all councillor members, on the clerk's meeting portal. They'll be attached to the agenda, and any councillor, including your local councillor, will be able to see those before they're voting on the budget. I encourage the public to send their comments to the Budget Committee through the budget process by emailing buc@toronto.ca. That email address means that your thoughts about the budget will be seen before council votes on February 10th. This is the public's opportunity to speak about the budget directly to the committee, however. This is also our opportunity to consider your comments and input before we make recommendations as a whole budget committee to the mayor. We will be making those next week at the budget wrap-up, and we appreciate you taking the time to participate in the budget process while it's still with our committee. So with those comments said, I'm going to take a look at the list, and what I'm going to do is call the names 3 at a time, so you have time to prepare to come up. If you're in the council chamber with us, you'll be speaking at this microphone. We're just going to use the one. We have everything trained on that one for today. And if you are soon to speak, you can move further down so that you're ready to prepare. Okay. So the first three speakers that we have today are Stasia Stewart from the Social Planning Toronto folks, Louise Heidinger, and Tony Dickens. So we'll start with those three, and then I'll keep moving ahead so people are ready to take part. Stasia, I know someone who has the spelling of this name, but I don't know if the pronunciation is the same. I have a friend with the exact same spelling, and her name is Stasia. But if I got yours wrong, let me know. Oh, okay, we're very close. Okay, excellent. Okay, I'll start your timer, and you'll have 5 minutes, and then there may be questions from the members. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, members of the Budget Committee, for this opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Stasia Stewart, and I am the Director of Research, Policy, and Communications at Social Planning Toronto. I wish to acknowledge the work of the City staff, the Budget Committee, and the many residents and organizational representatives who've taken the time to share their experiences and priorities throughout this process. Social Planning Toronto is a community organization that brings together community-based agencies, community leaders, advocates, and residents across the city. We connect research and policy analysis to community action with the goal of building a more equitable, inclusive, and thriving Toronto for all. We know that this has been a difficult budget year with lower than expected revenue and insufficient federal and provincial funding. Yet there is much in this budget that deserves recognition for its investments that will meaningfully improve the well-being and quality of life for Torontonians. We support the budget's key investments in mental health and well-being, including the Toronto Community Crisis Service on the TTC and expansion of the library's social and crisis support service. The tenant supports and eviction prevention programs, including the Rent Bank and Rent Safe TO, support for unhoused residents, and equity for the programs that serve them, including plans to expand shelter sites, water bottle distribution, and efforts to harmonize wages for workers in city-funded nonprofit shelters. Community services, arts and cultural programs, and food security supports, including the inflationary increase to the Community Partnership Investment Program, the expansion of local arts funding, the full rollout of early local registration and free recreation centers, and the final phase of the Toronto Public Library open hours. And lastly, climate and transit improvement measures, including fare capping, the fare freeze, and the expansion of the air conditioner program. The budget includes these and so many other important investments that communities need, and we strongly urge the Budget Committee and all of City Council to support these programs and services. But the need is growing faster than the response. And despite these investments, the scale of need in our city continues to outpace the resources available to meet it. Toronto is facing an ongoing food insecurity crisis, a homelessness crisis, and a severe shortage of deeply affordable and accessible housing. For too many people, things are getting worse. We recognize the scale of these crises is larger than what one municipal government can resolve in a single year. We also acknowledge the tremendous efforts that the city, mayor, and council have stepped up to support renters, the unhoused, and others struggling the most with affordability and climate crises. As I've noted, we are encouraged by the many important investments in this budget, and I would like to highlight a few areas where further increases could have an even greater impact. To meet the scale of the crises, we urge Council to strengthen and expand investments in the following areas. Increased investment in the MURA program and a commitment to include sustained funding for MURA in the 10-year capital plan to protect existing affordable housing. Increases to the highly successful Toronto Tenant Support Program and the Eviction Prevention and the Community Program so that they can support even more residents. Addressing the inaccessibility of affordable housing by setting clear targets for new, fully accessible housing units. Increasing funding for drop-ins to harmonize pay for city-funded drop-in worker staff working for nonprofits, as you have done for shelter workers. Ongoing support for youth violence prevention, community safety, and youth employment, as well as childcare, to address the sunsetting of and insufficient federal and provincial funding levels. Explore rolling out fare capping earlier than September 2026 with a 40-trip cap to deepen affordability immediately and reducing the fare cap for post-secondary students. We also see the need for stronger reporting and transparency on disability inclusion in this budget. These measures are essential to prevent displacement, homelessness, and hardship, and to build a city where all residents can live with dignity and stability. We urge the city to continue advocating to all levels of government. Toronto cannot meet these challenges alone, and residents deserve a coordinated, adequately funded city. Thank you for your time and your commitment to the city.
Thank you. And right on time. Are there any questions of the deputy? I just have one, so I should set the clock on myself for questions. Stacia, I don't know if the social planning Toronto folks have had a chance to look into the fare capping, how we arrived at what we're doing in the first year and what month we're doing in, that it's based on being able to fund it in a year when balancing the TTC budget to target was very challenging. We're using really the last of the New Deal dollars that the Premier provided in that regard. And so improving the program beyond the $3 million it will cost to start the program this year really depends on that New Deal part 2 that is now beginning to be discussed. Is Social Planning Toronto planning on once those terms are known, advocating directly to the province as well?
Absolutely. We plan on advocating directly to the province. We also really would want to make a slight plug to consider deferring to reallocating some of the police budget into this budget so that there would be room to move up the date and deepen affordability for Torontonians now.
Okay, thank you. Those
Thank
are my
you.
questions. Thanks so much. Okay. So I have Louise Heidinger next, Tony Dickens, and then Calvin D'Souza, who is virtual attendees. Louise, ready? There you go.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello. Yes, we can.
All right. Thank you, members of the Budget Committee, for this opportunity to speak. I'm speaking today on behalf of Clean Indoor Air Toronto. We're a group of concerned Toronto residents who are dedicated to improving indoor air quality in our shared public spaces. Many of us are parents of children attending TDSB schools. Other members of our group have chronic health conditions that make them vulnerable to infection and exposure to air pollution. I'm here to ask for investment in indoor air quality. At present, there are no IAQ policies at any level of government that ensure indoor air is clean and safe to breathe, and there's no legally enforceable standard that defines what is clean and safe to breathe. Right now, IAQ policies are a voluntary measure. Some businesses and organizations have them, many others don't. The City of Toronto has an IAQ policy for its offices, but there's no citywide policy for the rest of Toronto. This policy forms an invisible layer of protection against wildfire smoke, extreme heat, and air pollution, and it's one that which all who work in municipal buildings are fortunate to have access to. There's many more people in the city who are not so fortunate. This is an accessibility issue. Several members of our group spoke before the Accessibility Advisory Committee last fall to speak about how poor indoor air quality and the lack of information about air quality status of an indoor space have presented barriers to access. It's impacted their ability to attend school, go to work, and how they can interact with their communities. It's also an equity issue. Many of Toronto's buildings have inadequate ventilation and lack air conditioning. This includes the majority of our public schools and older buildings, often found in less affluent neighborhoods. This means the residents of these buildings are severely impacted by air pollution, wildfire smoke, and extreme heat. During colder months, when everyone is indoors, poor ventilation creates the perfect conditions for disease spread, like the massive surge of flu cases that started before the holidays. I heard from my kids that at times, up to a third of their class was absent due to illness. And with so many teachers off sick, learning progress was impacted. Toronto desperately needs indoor air quality guidance, policy, and a bylaw that ensures all residents have equitable access to clean, safe to breathe indoor air. We thank City Council for considering a maximum temperature bylaw for rental units and the AC unit program for seniors and low-income residents. But we're concerned that this is only a partial measure. Temperature is but one metric of IAQ, and lack of air conditioning almost always coincides with poor ventilation, and that means poor indoor air quality. Window and portable AC units only cool recirculated air. They don't filter out wildfire smoke or fine particulate dust, and that means residents remain at risk. We only have to look over the past few summers to know that poor air quality days and extreme heat advisories are becoming more frequent and more intense. We're urging the city to invest in the following 3 policies. First is citywide indoor air quality policy and bylaw that follows the latest recommendations from Health Canada, ASHRAE, and the Ontario Society of Professional Engineers with regards to reducing airborne disease and fine particulate air pollution. 2, a program to accelerate indoor air quality improvement in Toronto's buildings, including incentives for HVAC upgrades and retrofits that meet the standards laid out in the new policy I just described. And 3, an IAQ monitoring system for municipal buildings and public schools that captures CO2 and PM2.5 levels and displays this data on a public website. In September 2025, Health Canada issued new IAQ guidance. This document can be used by policymakers to develop IAQ policy that, if put into action, would ensure better ventilation and cleaner indoor air. Over the past 4 weeks, we've run a petition that we'll soon deliver to City Hall to ask the Board of Health to direct Toronto Public Health to revise its planning in view of the new Health Canada guidance and provide this guidance to other municipal agencies as well as the public. We've received support from major organizations, including the Ontario Society of Professional Engineers and the Canadian Environmental Law Association. World-renowned experts in aerosol science have also signed. The elementary teachers of Toronto and tenant associations from across the city have also joined to support our cause because this is an issue that directly impacts their health. Last year, members of our group spoke before you to make these requests, and we're making them again now. Wildfire season starts earlier every year, which means it's just a few short months away. Taking bold action now will help to protect Toronto residents from urban air pollution and the impacts of climate change, as well as the spread of disease during the colder months. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right on time. Are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, thanks, Louise.
Thank you.
Okay, Tony Dickens, long time no see. We also have, just so people know, we have a virtual presentation next, Calvin D'Souza, and then Ray Aladek, who's here in person, I understand. Go ahead, Tony.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the Budget Committee. My name is Tony Dickens. I'm a longtime resident of North York, and I'm here today to urge you to prioritize fiscal responsibility and address wasteful spending in the city. Toronto's budget is under immense pressure. Property taxes are rising, residents struggling with affordability, yet we continue to see examples of inefficient or questionable spending. Dropping a property tax increase to 2.2% or whatever the rate might be this year in an election year is not an answer to wasteful spending. From unused software licenses costing taxpayers millions of dollars, apparently nearly 8 million to 11 million wasted on unused Microsoft 365 subscriptions, to ongoing deferrals in critical infrastructure repairs. While other areas balloon, the city has opportunities to cut waste without harming essential services, the key being essential services. But perhaps the most glaring example of misplaced priorities is the pay raise councillors gave themselves last year. In March of 2025, City Council voted, I believe, 15-8 to increase councillors' base salary by nearly 24%. That was not an increase that I received or other people I know received. From about $137,500 to approximately $170,600, a $33,000 jump per councillor. This added almost $1 million in extra costs to taxpayers in salaries and benefits alone. The decision came just months after a by-election in my own ward, Don Valley West. Rachel Chernos-Lynn, who's not here today, was elected on November 4th of 2024, took office with only a few months experience by the time of the vote, and She voted in favor of this substantial raise for herself. I guess she was fully deserving of it, as were the members of the committee. While many Torontonians face job insecurity, stagnant wages, or rising costs for basics like housing, transit, food, it sends the wrong message when elected officials award themselves such a large increase so soon after joining council, especially amid broader calls for restraint. We need leadership that leads by example, scrutinize every dollar, eliminate waste, and focus on core priorities like road repairs, public safety, and affordability supports. This is a city that often ignores real day-to-day problems. I do deliveries downtown. King Street is closed. This is a problem. It's not necessarily a budget committee problem, but it's a problem in the city because we lose focus with what will help the residents of Toronto. Can't drive down King Street, can't make a left turn off of Spadina onto Richmond, which is a one-way street. These are common sense things that the city has, that are implemented in the city that holds back productivity and increases a lot of tension in a lot of respects. We had a summer last year where there were glyphosates drifting into the air in Toronto. So interesting that the woman was talking about Clean Air Toronto. I think that's a very interesting endeavor. We have glyphosates floating in because they're used in our forest management in other parts of Ontario. And I'm not sure that people are familiar with this, but in my area, we had dead leaves throughout the summer. We had dead branches showing up in the wintertime when the leaves have fallen. And I think that if council again would focus, that's a no-cost endeavor to look at why do we have Roundup being sprayed to treat our forests. This is how we manage our forests in Canada. And it's wrong. It's a cancer-causing chemical in the US. So hopefully we can put our focus on where the focus needs to be. There's a lot of different examples. I won't go through too many. I did print out Councillor Bravo's expense report. And the funny part of this is for the Environment Day, having compost delivered for approximately $3,200. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Dickens. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thanks very much. I have a virtual deputation next. Councillors from Calvin D'Souza. Mr. D'Souza, you are live. Mr. D'Souza, we don't hear you yet, but we have unmuted you if you want to go ahead.
Can you see me, hear me now?
There you go. Yes,
Right,
and we can see you. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members of the Budget Committee, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak today. My name is Calvin D'Souza, and I'm a Toronto resident right here in Willowdale, here to speak in support of investing in indoor air quality standards and monitoring. I am also a member of the group Clean Indoor Air Toronto. I wanted to speak here today in particular because most of us residents of Toronto spend as much as 90% of our time indoors. And yet, unlike outdoor air quality, which is tracked and reported publicly, we do not have a comprehensive system to ensure that indoor air in our shared public spaces is clean and safe to breathe. And this is a matter that is very personal for me. Like many Torontonians, I spend a lot of time in spaces with often poor air quality. On the TTC during my daily commute, in often congested office buildings, and in healthcare settings whenever I need some medical care. These are not optional spaces, and we rely on public transit to get to work. We need to visit hospitals and clinics. We spend our working hours in offices, especially now with return to office mandates, bringing in more people into crowded offices. Yet in all of these environments, we have no assurance that the air that we are breathing meets any kind of health-based standards. This matters for three important reasons. Firstly, it is a health issue. Poor air quality especially indoor air quality, is linked to higher rates of respiratory illness, reduced cognitive function, and increased burden on our healthcare system. I should not have to get sick from the air inside a healthcare facility, for instance. Good indoor air quality, on the other hand, is associated with improved learning outcomes, better decision-making, and increased productivity in workplaces. Now, with approximately 44% of Canadian adults reporting that they have at least one chronic health condition, clean indoor air is increasingly becoming a necessity. Secondly, this is also an equity issue. Buildings with inadequate ventilation are often disproportionately found in less affluent neighborhoods. Many of our public schools and older office buildings lack the mechanical ventilation that is needed to handle fine particulate matter and airborne contaminants that are being increasingly common with wildfires. TTC riders, very often those who cannot afford other methods of transportation, are exposed to poor air quality daily. When we do not invest in indoor air quality, we leave our most vulnerable residents without protection. Thirdly, we now have a clear guidance and mandate to act. Health Canada last year, released a new indoor air quality guidance in September of 2025, providing policymakers with a framework to develop effective indoor air quality policy. So the tools and standards now exist. What we need is the commitment and the will to implement them. So I am here to ask the committee to consider 3 investments as part of this budget. Firstly, support a citywide indoor air quality policy aligned with the recommendations from Health Canada and from the American Society for Heating, Refrigeration, and Air Conditioning Engineers that covers public transit, healthcare facilities, offices, and schools. Secondly, for a program to accelerate IAQ improvements in Toronto buildings, including funding and incentives for ventilation upgrades. And thirdly, an IAQ monitoring system for municipal buildings, public schools, transit stations, and city-operated facilities that can track carbon dioxide levels, particulate matter, temperature, and humidity, and also display this data publicly both at the location and on the internet at a public website. The City of Toronto already has a good IAQ policy for its own offices. I am aware that the air quality right now in North York Civic Center, where the committee is seated, is quite excellent. It is now time to extend this to all indoor shared spaces. I urge you to include indoor air quality investments in this year's budget, and thank you for your time and consideration.
Okay, thank you, Calvin. Are there any questions about that deputation? Seeing none? Okay, thank you very much. And next I have Rhea Laddick, and then Valerie Endicott online, and then Lottie Kwan. Okay, Rhea, welcome.
Hi, okay, perfect. You can hear me. Hi, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Rhea, and I'm part of TTC Riders. I live near York Mills and Leslie, and I rely on the TTC for my everyday transit while trying to balance the cost of living with the cost of actually getting to my commitments. I want to speak today about bus bunching and how it affects both service reliability and what riders like me ultimately end up paying. At York Mills and Leslie, there's a pedestrian crossing over a 6-lane road that takes about 2.5 minutes to change. What happens very regularly, and what happened to me today on the way here, is that while I'm waiting to cross the street to catch my bus, 3, 4, 5 buses pass by at the same time, all bunched together. And by the time my light changes, they're gone, and I'm left waiting 10, 15, 20 minutes for my next bus, especially in this negative 20-degree weather, which I think nobody wants to do. When this happens, schedules stop meaning anything. A trip that should be straightforward becomes unpredictable, connections are missed, and delays that stack up in ways that we cannot plan around. This also has a real financial impact. While the 2-hour transfer helps when service is running smoothly, when buses bunch or gaps occur, that time keeps running, and trips stretch longer than expected, and riders can end up paying additional fares simply because service wasn't reliable. I do want to acknowledge that the TTC has taken steps to address this. The bunching and gapping pilot with enhanced on-street supervision has showed that focused reliability efforts can work. On some pilot routes, reliability has improved by multiple percentage points, and that's very encouraging to see as a citizen, and it shows that this problem is very solvable. But from my lived experience, literally standing at the intersection in North York, bus bunching remains a daily reality for many of us, and that's why I'm asking the Budget Committee to take 2 specific actions in the 2026 city budget. First, I urge you to continue and strengthen investments that reduce bus bunching and service gaps so buses arrive evenly and we can trust that when we see a bus coming, it won't be followed by an unpredictable wait. And second, I'm asking you to implement fare capping sooner than September. Fare capping would protect us from being financially penalized when unreliable service turns a simple trip into a longer one. Riders should not pay more simply because buses arrived all at once and then didn't arrive again for tens of minutes. Together, these changes would make transit more predictable, more affordable, and more fair for people who rely on it every day. So to close, I'm asking you to pass a city budget that builds on what's working to reduce bus bunching, and secondly, accelerates fare capping so riders aren't paying for the price of unreliable service. These decisions shape whether the TTC is something we can actually depend upon day after day, and inconsistent transit is not something that's fun to deal with or something to invest in. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the deputy? Councillor Myers.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Thank you for your deputation. Just 2 things. One, did you know that the TTC is continuing the bus bunching and gapping pilot and making it permanent, and that money is in the TTC's budget?
Yes, I did, and I would like it to expand as well.
Fair enough. But first, you got to get the 10 routes right before we expand it to the rest of the city.
Fair enough.
Second, regarding the fare capping, did you know there's a cost to this, obviously, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And the part of the consideration of doing it this year was to get it off the ground. We wanted to minimize the costs, which is why we waited until September, because as you can see, the budget is quite tight this year.
Yes, totally understood.
And did you know, final question, 2027, the goal is to have the fare capping reduced to 40 rides per month, which I know a lot of people are hoping for, but we want to make sure that we have the service to actually meet the increased demand that will likely result from it, and that we deal with those issues like the bus bunching and gapping that you brought up.
Yes, I did know it was planned for 2027, and I know that right now it's at 47 rides, I believe, that we're capping it at.
47 rides.
Yeah, so the progress is amazing, and I think that we do have the technology and the willingness from everybody to invest in it. It's just there's a bit of a disconnect onto why, I guess, it can't be rolled out earlier. I do understand the cost associated with it, but I will still be advocating for it to be rolled out sooner.
And one final thing. Did you know that part of Presto 2.0, we'll be able to do it? Part of the reason that we're delaying it is so that we don't have to necessarily do it at the start of the month fare capping. We could do it by week. We could do it starting in the mid-month, or there's lots of different ways, so that 40 rides per week could easily become 10 rides a week. 40 rides per month could easily become 10 rides per week. But we still have to get that technology implemented to actually do that kind of work.
I did not know that part, so I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everyone.
I just have a follow-up question, because I haven't asked this of TCC riders for a while. But all of these things are contingent on working out a sustainable funding formula for the city, that New Deal Part 2. And we've heard from the Premier recently, he doesn't want to go down the road at this point. He doesn't want to provide us just a new revenue tool. If we had a revenue that grew with the economy, we'd of course invested in transit because it's sort of our circulatory system. And so if we do that, then there's investment left over for the rest of the city. But the fare capping really really puts the urgency to that needs to be what we need to target in New Deal Part 2, whether they do it by having some sustainable agreement of what they're funding in the TTC, or how they want to sustainably change what are the fundamentals of our budget, the biggest of them being the transit system. So I'm wondering if TTC Riders has branched out from just communicating with the commission to advocating on behalf of the commission, and if so, are they meeting with provincial members of parliament as well to help them understand?
Yes, we will be advocating for that. And August. Yeah, we will be advocating for that. And, there's different strategies to increase the funding for the TTC, such as parking levies, which I'm sure you've heard from TTC Riders before, of, these big conglomerates having so much parking and not being taxed for them. Simple things like that can also increase the budget as well.
Thank you. Okay,
Thank you.
thanks. Okay, so we have Valerie Endicott virtual, and then Lottie Kwan and Catherine Poon after that. Is Valerie ready online? Okay, Valerie, we are making you live and unmuting you. Welcome.
Can you hear me?
We can. Welcome.
Thanks. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you. I have learned so much already from listening to some of the other speakers, and I feel that some of what they're saying really dovetails with what I feel like saying. I'm a member of Climate Fast, a grassroots Toronto-based climate action group. And over the last 18 months, I've helped organize constituents in many wards to attain meetings with their councillors and to do information tables in an effort to increase the profile of Transform TO. And you all know that that's our world-class net zero by 2040 climate action strategy. So I'm coming today with some ideas following from that. At the telephone town hall, the mayor emphasized that this budget is about affordability, and I absolutely applaud that. And I want to point out that much of the Transform TO vision is compatible with making life more affordable. This is a fact that many of us wish the city emphasized more often, and I will be getting back to that later. For example, no fare increases and better service on the TTC is an affordability measure. In turn, lower fares, better service equals increased ridership, which then reduces the number of carbon polluting cars on the road. The ultimate aim of Transform TO's vision for public transportation is that it will one day, in fact, be free. I know that will make some people gasp. Fare capping takes us a little way down that road. I would encourage that we go further and do as, in fact, Kingston does, allowing students right through high school to ride free. I agree with the speaker from the Social Planning Council that a reallocation of the police budget could go some way towards helping with these kinds of ideas. I fully support the significant increases to funding for heat relief. This is a nod to the fact that the climate is getting unbearably hot and many low-income people cannot afford air conditioning. And I'm also really interested to hear about the indoor air quality issues that have been brought up today. And I know some places, I've forgotten exactly where, they monitor that in the same way that the folks today have been asking for indoor air quality to be monitored. So like, what is the CO2 level from using fossil gas, so-called natural gas. I got off track. I also thank you for things like the solar paneling on Toronto community housing, for the LED street lights and the continued commitment to greening the city's fleet. All of these and more are bringing down costs for the city that can allow more money to flow elsewhere. For example, toward bike lanes, which in turn help people get around more affordably. There's lots of other ways it could be put to affordable things as well. Sadly, despite all these efforts listed above, the urgency of the climate crisis is not reflected in the spending, and it never is. The city struggles, I know, to do the best it can with its available funds. I support property tax increases and other revenue sources. Commercial parking levies and congestion pricing come to mind, and I'm disappointed that the council voted against the first last year. But we all know we need much more help from the other orders of government. This is true for meeting our affordability crisis, and it's true for meeting the climate crisis. The more the city makes clear to residents what Toronto needs from these other governments, the better we can help press for that. So again, we've been talking to councillors. We're quite happy to talk to the other politicians in our ridings, but we really need to know what to press for and to work together. I would like more communication about the co-benefits of meeting the climate crisis and addressing affordability. Can we help communications staff, for example, focus on climate communications and provide them with a budget earmarked for making the links between Transform TO and affordability? Working up a campaign, for example, about how to make Toronto, a future forward, renewable energy driven, healthier, livable city for all. That has a powerful ring to it. And I think a lot of Torontonians would get behind that. One small low-cost campaign, for example, could simply be boosting the provincial Peak Perks program. I only learned about it recently. At present, only 10% of households are signed up for this. A goal of 90% participation by 2030 would engage homeowners and put some money in their pockets as well. Another low-cost, high-impact way to communicate the need to, quote, transform Toronto would be if the city advertised the need for and facilitated the bulk buying of, say, heat pumps for residents. The possibilities for how to actively communicate climate and affordability solutions are many. In conclusion, thank you for delivering a budget that maintains and in some cases increases funding for initiatives that are making our lives greener and healthier and more affordable. I urge this committee to put funds towards getting more Torontonians on board, that communication piece. Please continue what you have started and look to accelerating citywide efforts to meet the climate and affordability crises together at the scale required in order to truly solve them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Valerie. Okay, are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you so much for your deputation, Valerie. We have it transcribed here, so we're going to want to look back at it. Thank you, very impressive. Okay, I have Lottie Kwan from the Repair Cafe of Willowdale. And you have friends.
Where's the microphone? Hello?
Okay, yes.
Good afternoon, Chair, Person, and Budget Committee. Oh, and plus our counselor. I am Lottie. And I am head of the Repair Cafe Willowdale. And today I'm here with my other partners. I've got JJ, my legal counsel, Vanya, my events manager, and Paul, who is one of our lead fixers and other leadership members. And today we're here to talk to you about the seeking your understanding and support for our community initiative, especially in the context of today's current budget challenges. JJ, please, if you will.
Hello. Good afternoon. Our initiative actually began quite directly in response to community needs here in Willowdale. Following discussions during a climate action roundtable where residents expressed a keen interest in sustainable living practices, Council Lily Chen's office partnered with local residents to establish this repair cafe. It wasn't a top-down initiative. It was a collaboration sparked by genuine community interest and aligned with environment goals. This connection to council priorities from the beginning is very significant. The concept was very simple. Provide events where residents could get help with repairing everyday items instead of discarding them, thereby reducing waste and saving money. The community's enthusiasm was immediate and substantial. We have become a valued resource for the Willowdale neighborhood, offering a practical way for residents to contribute to climate action goals through everyday repair. Since our launch in August 2025, we've had 3 large events in total. Overall, we have completed over 300 repairs, saving our neighbors collectively more than $30,000 in replacement costs. Furthermore, by extending the life of existing items, we're actively delivering diverting goods from landfill, contributing directly to the city's environmental goals, a crucial contribution, especially when budgets are tight.
Thank you, JJ. Beyond the tangible savings and environmental benefits, our work has a deeper restorative impact. Fixing is a restorative action in more ways than material. When people repair something they value, it helps them maintain a connection to their home, community, and routines during these difficult times. This simple act fosters resourcefulness and resilience, and we believe it strengthens community bonds where they're both needed right now. And Vanya can tell you more.
Hello. We understand that the city needs to carefully allocate funds. Our request, therefore, is to ask for support for community initiatives like ours in facilitating acquisition of venue space and insurance at reduced or waived rates, as these remain cost prohibitive for these grassroots organizing. Subsidizing efforts for community organizations like us could be easily met by donations of space and insurance coverage for this vital community response mechanism to function effectively. It was born from community need and council's willingness to support it, and it continues to deliver tangible environmental and economic benefits to residents, but we're finding ourselves limited by these restrictions. Without our councillor, Lily Cheng, and her team's assistance, establishing and nurturing this effort would have been significantly more challenging.
We respectfully ask the Budget Committee to find ways to promote continuation and new community efforts like Repair Cafe Willowdale. With space and insurance support especially, we believe it represents essential support for our community during these difficult financial times, and it aligns directly with the city's priorities of fostering community resilience, promoting sustainable living, and addressing climate changes proactively and directly. In closing, the truth about a city's aspirations isn't found in its vision, it's found in its budget. Thank you very much for your time and consideration. We're happy to answer any questions you might have.
I think there might be some questions. So, councillors, all of the people speaking had their names added to the list, so we can ask any question and they can share in giving us the answers. I have some, but I'll ask first if my colleagues have any. Councillor Chang.
Thank you for the amazing work that you do. I was sharing with Councillor Myers how your group coming together and how amazing the initiatives you have spearheaded has restored my faith in humanity in so many ways. You know, we hear negative news a lot more than positive. So my questions are, you know, what do you think that budget would be in terms of sustainability for a group like yours? What would those costs for space rental and insurance? Do you have an estimate of and you don't have to answer it right now. We could take it offline and we can explore opportunities. But if you had a ballpark, that would be helpful.
It's been quite rough, but we've had a lot of parties interested in offering us reduced rates. It's just that with insurance being the biggest hurdle right now, we've received several quotes from different insurance companies ranging in the ballpark of almost $3,000 a year to $5,000 being the median average price. And that's before adding in even the cost of the venue itself and other support materials, which is roughly about $300 a day.
Have you explored potential partnerships with local organizations like the North York Senior Center or NeighborLink North York? Because I know they have insurance coverage and maybe there would be a partnership possibility.
Yes, right now we're in the middle of talking over a partnership with them. It's been a long year and we're going to speak to them again soon.
If I may, I also think the cost that my colleague mentioned, if such a cost were to be spent on, you know, providing us with these venues, we wouldn't be the only group who would be able to use these spaces. I am sure that there are many other groups with a lot of other humanitarian initiatives that given, you know, these assets, which are the most, you know, cost prohibitive parts of this, would be able to use it as well. So for the amount that the city would have to put in this budget, it would, in my in my opinion, would be a huge payback because it would open the space for a lot of other groups as well.
Yes, JJ.
Sorry, if I may, I think humbly, they forgot to mention something very important. When I mentioned $30,000, it's not only the cost of the repair. These folks, especially the fixers, it's their time, and it's also all their equipment being brought in order to fix the items. So at each event, not only their time, but all their private properties, if you will, are being used towards repairing the goods. And beyond the sentimental value of each item, I think that it really should be noted that the efforts that they're putting in, both labor and the material that they're putting in, should be into consideration towards this support that we're requesting from the city.
So certainly community space, I'm hearing is a huge, I think, obstacle and something that my office has continued to work with you on and will continue to work with you on. But yeah, I want to thank you for everything you do. And did you know we now have a circular economy division, and there might be opportunities to also talk about partnership with that team. So yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So my question is sort of around what stage are you at as an organization? Because that matters very much to whether or not you make it into the community partnership investment grant program. And there are, someone was talking about the relation between affordability and different types of services in the environment, and there are criteria in there to do things that actually meet Transform TO goals, but they end up undersubscribed because people don't think of that our whole grant program space as being a place to go to access for the climate, but it can be. But the question is, how far are you along? Are you working with anyone from the city to understand how social development and community development grants might be a fit for you? Are you working with them on whether or not you meet the criteria, and if not, how you would? Has that conversation begun?
Yes. So right now our classification is as a grassroots organization, and the City of Toronto has provided a lot of grassroots budget grants this year, and we've applied to several as we could. It's been helpful, but I know we're up against competition, so.
Yes, and often it's not even just a matter of competition, but the size of the envelope. And so even if you apply for a grant and the answer is no, there should be someone continuing to work with you until you are nurtured to the point where the answer can be yes. And that's especially important because we have in the past simply added an inflationary increase to the grant total envelope amount, which means that the need, as someone said earlier, the need is still growing faster than the amount being invested in the community. And so that this year's increase is a little above inflation. There might be more room. And council from time to time says we want to see more new and emerging groups on that trajectory. So is a staff member committed to working with you throughout the year to see if you can get to where you qualify for a substantial community development grant?
No, but I'll look into it. So far, the grants I've been applying have been very independent in a sense. No one's usually assigned to take care of our case, so to speak, until we actually reach the approval phase, as far as I've known.
Okay. I'll follow up with Councillor Chang about that then. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. And I think those are all the questions. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
I have Catherine Poon next, and then Nicholas Christou and Anna Gorka. Catherine, welcome.
Hello,
Hello, go ahead.
I'm Catherine, a grade 12 student at Earl Hague Secondary School. I recently joined TDC Riders. I live in Ward 18 Willowdale, and I am asking for streetcar bunching to be reduced. In grade 11, I was doing an architecture internship as part of earning my high school credits. Since internships, especially in architecture, are hard to come by as a high school student, the only job that would accept me was downtown. To go back home, I took the King Streetcar East until King Station, then took Line 1 northbound to North York Center. This was during the evening rush hour. I often found myself waiting for the streetcar, one time for almost 40 minutes. Then 3 to 4 streetcars would show up at the same time. Often, the streetcar would take so long that I would decide to walk to St. Andrew Station instead, a kilometer away, during winter, in the dark. Some days, I'd even arrive home at 8 p.m. This commute left me little time and energy to complete my schoolwork and see my friends. My grades suffered too. If measures to reduce streetcar bunching, such as implementing transit signal priority in streetcars and enforcing restrictions on left turns on streetcar routes, I wouldn't have had to decide between walking in the dark or waiting for a streetcar that might never come. Overall, I believe that working to reduce streetcar bunching would help make many people's commutes much easier, leaving them the time and energy to do the things that matter for them. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the deputant? Seeing none, thank you so much for that, deputant. I have to say, things have not changed too much. My daughter, who is much older than you, when she did a student intern program, she was traveling from Don Mills to Liberty Village and counting on transit to do it. Don't know why all the internships are that far afield. Thank you so much for making that effort. Okay.
Thank you for listening.
Okay. Nicholas Christou, here we are.
Hi.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, councilors and chair.
Afternoon.
Just wanted to say thank you so much for your dedication and patience during the budget process. My name is Nicholas Christou, and I'm a resident of Ward 6, York Center. And I'm here today to advocate and urge councilors to support a budget that emphasizes affordability. There are many things that matter to me as a young person living in one of the most unaffordable cities in Canada. Like many people, the cost of housing, basic essentials like groceries, and transportation have been the biggest financial burden in my life. Today, I want to focus specifically on transportation. I'm a frequent transit rider where I use the TTC to get to every facet of my life. Whether I'm visiting friends, going to appointments, or to get to work or school, I'm on a bus or I'm on a train. That's a theme here. And I am grateful for our transit system because even with its faults, access to transit has meant that I don't need to spend thousands of dollars per year on owning a car or using expensive rideshare services. This is why I'm urging you to continue funding transit, service increases, and keeping the cost of transit affordable. Thousands of people like myself rely on transit every day, and as transit riders, we reduce traffic and pollution, and we increase income for local businesses. And I know that the budget is tight this year with everything going on, not just on the city level, but with the province and the federal government. But I just wanted to highlight that according to a 2025 presentation to the TTC board, which I'm sure Chair Myers remembers, University of Toronto PhD scholars stated that every $1 invested into the TTC yields around $7 in additional benefits. And this is an important thing to note as transit being more than just, a thing for people to use, but it's a tool for the city to generate more prosperity. If we want to continue seeing benefits like this, transit needs to be a serious, affordable, dependable, and accessible option for everyone. For keeping transit affordable, I support and urge you to support a third year of not raising fares and implementing fare capping. I already know it's implemented. I'm just wanted to say thank you for, we all appreciate that and just want to see that keep going. Not only does this help keeping commuting affordable for millions of people per year, but it helps to meet climate goals, reduce congestion, and generate wealth for the city, as I previously said. With implementations like fare capping and a fare freeze, people will be able to better afford housing and groceries and other things. And at the same time, the city will be able to better afford vital services like fire, paramedics, parks, and libraries. Public transit is more than just buses and trains, but it's about more affordable access to housing, services, and jobs. To compare experiences, when I was in university very recently, with the student fare, I was spending around $100 a month on commuting. Not cheap, but compared to my friend who would drive to school, was paying way more than that amount on just parking alone. On top of that, gas, insurance, car payments, and maintenance meant he was spending hundreds, if not thousands more per month than me. And he had to deal with traffic. I emphasize these experiences because public transit makes life more affordable. This is why we need to continue investing in public transit and focusing on keeping service and reliability high while keeping the cost of transit for riders low. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you very much, Nicholas. Are there any questions for the deputy? Seeing none, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so I have Anna Gorka, who's here in the chamber, I believe. And then Athena Niga Neighbor, virtually Shiva Amini. So is Anna here? Oh, she's virtual? Oh, okay. Anna, I think we've unmuted you and that means you are now live. Would you like to go ahead?
Hi.
Oh, there we are. We can see you as well. That's always a plus. Go ahead.
Well, I'll start with saying hello and thank you for having this opportunity, and you cherish every piece of democracy. I was going to cancel because I really wasn't prepared to create the kind of deputation that would have operational pieces and more research. But then when I saw the shortage of the list of speakers, I thought it would be remiss not to at least show up with some of the field notes that I've collected from an intensive background in volunteerism. So is that okay?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you, because I need to feel better about not being prepared as I want to be. So, I am a mother, I am a volunteer, I have a background in architecture, and I experienced some housing insecurity in 2020. And after connecting the dots, I recognized that it had a lot to do with vacancy control getting lifted and then large corporate property managers having incentive to push people out through various bully tactics. And it's been really incredibly restorative for me to take on housing cases myself, which led me to liaising with counselor offices and some of the 76 Ontario social worker offices, where different avenues of help have been a real flurry to decipher. Now, this riding of Willowdale, or ward of Willowdale, has been so good at information systems. But this particular case led me downtown to Councillor Sachs's ward, which is also an excellent office. What I'd like to suggest is that when a volunteer advocate, housing advocate, crops up, it would be very supportive to have a package for such a person, because a first-time housing advocate might encounter a lot of perils, like relationship issues with the case, like an over-reliance. And these are trainings that social workers get, whereas people who have their nose on the ground and know how to find housing might not know what a social worker knows. I will say that it would be helpful to have people who have some time on their hands to help house people in housing distress. So some of the and again, this is not a prepared speech, just a collection of notes to earmark some budget to comprehensively market this opportunity for people as a very rewarding one. ODSP is at 1,400, and that leaves for my new friend about $150 to $200 a month to operate with. He received half price on a one bachelor in a mutual aid arrangement, which was a really feel-good story where two religions are getting along. It didn't matter that they were different religions. So there's a feel-good story for you. And then in combination with the church, as well as the counselor office and myself, there were 4 lines of help, which is a lot to house somebody. I want to suggest that a little bit of attention be put into preserving housing stock. I have yet to investigate, but near me in Ward 4, there is St. Joseph's Hospital is going to tear down sister's residence, which is historic, quite plum. And in my view, as a past architect, tearing it down right now would really contribute to that statistic of losing housing stock, whereas you could tear down a few small single-story buildings to make an addition. I know that it's complex and that the project is in motion. So here's where I'm very embarrassed to have such a conversational approach to the deputation, but I'm at 4 minutes, so I'm going to stop at that. Leave that just a point made for housing supports for volunteer housing advocates. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? I just have a brief one myself, Anna. I don't know if you're aware, we've already had a deputy advocate for more work in the Mura program. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the multi-unit residential acquisition program that we acquire existing buildings.
Oh, well, I have never interacted with it.
Oh, okay. It's something to look into because I appreciate your concern about the change made to the residents over in the area of St. Joseph's Hospital. But the reason I asked the question is because that is a neighborhood where they've made considerable progress on Mura, because there are a number of buildings there that really fit the bill where we take over an existing building, then partner with a service agency, a not-for-profit that can be the manager of that building, which is a way that we can increase the amount of affordable housing in these times when it's really hard to get conventional developers and construction companies to stick their neck out and pick up a building permit and start a building. We've offered them all sorts of incentives, but they're not moving. The Mura program, which got a little more funding this year and should have lots more, is a fast way for us to proceed using buildings that already exist. It's something that you might want to look into and discuss with your counselor. Yeah.
Oh, excellent, thanks. And perhaps the vacancy tax could also receive information about finding a volunteer housing advocate to folks who pay the tax and own a vacant unit. Maybe they could be connected to advocates, I meant to say.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Okay, those are the questions. Thanks, Anna. Our next is I think is another virtual attendee. Is Athena ready? Oh, okay. We don't have Athena logged in yet. Is Shiva Amini ready to go? Okay, let's go on to Shiva and I'll ask, we'll check in for Athena later.
Hi.
Welcome, you are live, go ahead.
Okay, I'm just gonna turn on my camera.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
We always appreciate the camera being on.
Good evening. My name is Shiva Amini and I live in Ward 12, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I would like to focus on two issues today. One is improving streetcar service and also improving safety across the transit system. First is streetcars. Streetcars should be one of the strongest aspects of Toronto's transit network, but for many riders, they are the least dependable. I would like to see concrete action to speed them up and make them predictable. That means real transit signal priority so streetcars don't sit at every red light, along with dedicated lanes and infrastructure to allow for higher speeds. Instead of being people's first choice, the streetcars perform so poorly that the thought of depending on the streetcars is treated more as a sad, sarcastic joke among many Torontonians than an actual reality. I believe wayfinding also needs to be improved. For many stops, the only indication is a small sign on a pole. There should be clear shelters and real-time information so people know where to stand and whether a streetcar is actually coming. Using the system should not feel like guesswork. I'm speaking from personal experience. Recently, I was meeting my brother for dinner. We took the subway and then needed a streetcar for the last connection. We waited outside in the cold while the arrival time kept changing. No streetcar came and no information explained why. After almost half an hour, we gave up and ordered an Uber. We would have done that from the start if we had known the service was so unreliable and ended up late for dinner. That night, I told myself I couldn't depend on the streetcar anymore. Many people I know feel the same, and that directly affects ridership. The second issue is safety on transit overall. People will not choose public transit if they do not feel safe using it, especially in the evenings. A few nights ago, I was on the train around 9:30 p.m. on a Sunday. There was a large presence of people who were clearly in crisis and under the influence. The behavior was unpredictable and there were no staff nearby. I felt genuinely unsafe and spent the ride anxious about what might happen. Due to a man targeting my friend, angrily saying that she was getting ready to record him by putting her hands in her pockets, we got off early to take the next train. We explained the situation and the unstable person to a TTC worker on the platform. His feedback was that we should have reported it on the app. Of course, we would not dare pull out our phone after this man's yelling and already paranoid about us reporting him. Also, many times there is a lack of cell service, so this is not a blanket solution. Unfortunately, this is becoming a common experience, particularly among women. Again, I told myself that it's not worth the risk and to strive to not rely on public transit in the late evenings. I know I'm not the only one feeling this way, and this is affecting ridership. While it is a good step that I saw that there was a crisis worker pilot happening, I'm not sure if this is enough. If crisis workers happen to be on your train, they wouldn't be able to stop an assault. Safety is not separate from ridership. It is the foundation of it. I also want to add that I support the fare freeze. Keeping transit affordable is important, but affordability must go hand in hand with reliability and safety. Many people are struggling to stay afloat with the current cost of living crisis, and fare frees are important and necessary for many right now. I also think it's important to increase ridership. For example, oftentimes if I'm in a group of people, it's cheaper for us to split an Uber than to all pay a transit fare. So in conclusion, if streetcars were faster and dependable, and if riders felt secure on the system, many more Torontonians would choose transit instead of cars or Ubers. And that is a city I hope we move toward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Shiva. Sorry to hear about that experience. Are there any questions of the deputant? Councillor Myers, we were just saying that we're lucky to have the chair of the TTC with us today because there are a lot of very specific things coming here.
I think they came because they knew I was here. Thank you, Shiva. And again, I will echo Councillor Carroll's apologies for the service you received. I guess the first thing is, did you know that in the TTC's 2026 budget, we are funding year one of the wayfinding strategy? So that's improvements to the wayfinding to deal with exactly the issues that you're dealing with in terms of it's not being clear when you get to the bus shelter, what way the bus is going, or the streetcar, or even the signage in the subways, making sure that, for example, there's alphanumeric codes on each exit, so Google can tell you the proper exit to get through. Did you know that?
No, I did not know that, but I think that sounds great, and I'd love to see it. I did notice there was talk of, or I saw on one of the signs that it was temporary. So I was hoping that maybe there would be changes coming. So, yeah.
Yes. So that is part of the work that we're doing at TTC, and also we are doing, and did you know, we are doing a number of safety initiatives. So one of the initiatives that we've started since last year was to have the special constables out of their vehicles and walking onto the subways and the subways and the subway stations so that they're more visible and they're there when something's happened, and so we can do more proactive work. We've also, as you noted, started the crisis support worker 24-hour, 24/7 pilot at Union, Spadina, and Yonge and Bloor. And we are also part of the reason that we're actually seeing the number of incidents go down. I know it doesn't feel like that, but the number of incidents going down is that what we found at the TTC is that when you prevent people who are not paying from getting onto the system in the first place, disproportionately, those are the people who generally cause the most problems. But at the same time, we're trying to find a way so that if we're preventing someone who's underhoused from coming onto the system, that we're not just saying you can't come on, but we're also having the follow-up and saying, is there something that we can help you with? Did you know that that work is underway?
I can only share my experience that at my time, there was not someone to, like, I didn't feel safe and there wasn't someone that I felt would be able to protect me in any way. As about the comment on those preventing them from coming onto the system in the first place, I actually brought that up to the TTC worker in my conversation in the story I provided on the platform. And the feedback we got about that was that, like, oh, if we don't, because of like human rights, we can't like detain anyone. So that was my suggestion too. Like, it would be nice to see them not make it on the train because of like fare evasion in the first place. So I'm glad to hear.
And yes, we haven't fully rolled out that policy in terms of getting it to the front lines, but that work is well underway in terms of rolling that out so that we can make sure everyone who gets onto the CTC has a good and safe experience. So thank you for bringing up those concerns.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you so much, Shiva.
Thank you.
Okay. That is Shiva. Did Athena log on at any point? Okay, so we'll go on to Jennifer. That's a good idea. We have Jennifer Conroy and then another Sherilyn Vitesse after that. Those are both virtual, so we'll stay in the virtual space. Is Jennifer ready to go? Okay. Jennifer, you are live. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
We can. Welcome.
Okay, then thank you for your time. My name is Jennifer Conroy, and I am here to speak to you on the fare freeze for capping issue. As a person on a fixed income, I am on ODSP. Affordable fares on transit are important. As a person with a disability, I often use TTC Wheel-Trans to get around the city several times a week to appointments in my accessibility committee meetings. Most of my fellow committee members are Wheel-Trans users as well, so this affects them too. Being able to afford fares is not only essential when riding the TTC, but it's also a form of independence. Being unable to afford it means that I cannot get where I need to be and must rely on other means of transportation, like taxis, which is often more expensive than TTC, and that's only if they have an accessible taxi available at the time of my trip. If not, it can be up to a 30-minute wait for a ride. This creates even more of a barrier. Fare capping means travel is more affordable in that I can come and go as I like without worrying if I have enough funds on my Presto card. I urge you to keep implementing the fare capping and the fare freeze. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, thank you. Are those all your comments, Jennifer?
Yes, they are.
Okay, and they follow on some of the other deputies. Are there any questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we have Sherilyn Vitesse. Okay. Sherilyn, you'll have to tell me if I've made a mess of pronouncing your last name.
I've been listening to the other deputations, and first of all, I want to agree with what Shiva was saying about the TTC and the sense of being safe. I have felt those very same feelings, and it's not conducive to encouraging people to take the TTC. So again, my name is Sherilyn Veteze, and I live in Willowdale, and I've lived here for a long time, for decades, and I would like to continue living here because I think it has been great up to a certain point. Has been run down for most recently, but I think we can fix things. So I have 4 items that I would like to discuss. First of all, I do not want to see any more tax increases. Definitely get more money from the province, negotiate something else, but also what I would like to see is repurposing the budget to more constructive and useful spending. For example, why are we spending billions of dollars on the Gardner Expressway? I mean, we should be repurposing it and looking at ways of finding alternatives. Obviously, we need to spend more money on public transit and encouraging people to walk, being more pedestrian friendly, and finding and bicycles. We need more bicycle lanes to encourage alternatives. The other thing is reduce or repurpose our the huge budget that we're spending on policing. I mean, we should be looking at other social programs and spending those expensive dollars on getting results. We're seeing more and more homeless people in around North York, and it is a real problem. And homelessness can happen to anybody, and we're failing in that regard. And we should be looking at other ways to make our streets and communities safe, and not only safe from danger, but more welcoming and encouraging people to get around rather than being afraid. So I think we need to repurpose the budget and see how we can spend better instead of doing the same old thing over and over again that no longer works. The other thing I'd like to see is climate action. We don't have a plan of what happens for for extreme weather events. Climate change is an emergency, and we're not acting like it is an emergency. The city has no plan if there's a mass power outage or a broken water main. Is anybody listening to me? I hope so. But I would like to see there is a funding item for climate action and a climate action plan, because look what's happened in Calgary. I mean, whenever there's a failure in the infrastructures that we have for water, for electricity, heating, but transportation, communication, all of these things need to be addressed, and we need to have a budget to look at these items. So when are we going to get a climate action plan? I would like to see a budget item for that in particular. And when I hear about people being concerned about the air quality, we need to have more green space, because that is certainly an investment in people's mental health and making our cities more resilient to extreme weather like flooding and heat. We're talking about air conditioners. We can use the trees. We can use those cheaper solutions that do work if we work with nature. So those are the things that I would like to see, and I hope you were listening to me because I could see you even though that you can't see me. But this is an important time that we should be looking at our budget to see how we can do things better instead of doing the same old thing. So I'd like to see more initiatives in this regard. And thank you very much for your time, and I hope that you'll be able to implement some of my ideas. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let me just see, and that was right on time. Thank you, Sherilyn. Let me just see if we have some questions from the members. Councillor Chang.
Hello,
Hi,
Sherilyn.
how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
You for your deputation, and Yes, so I just wanted to know, did you know that we've actually uploaded the cost of the Gardner and the DBP? So that was part of the new deal that was negotiated, New Deal Part 1. And as a result, a lot of that money saved has been allocated to state of good repair across the city. So just wondering if you knew that already happened.
I haven't seen that. If I can just add to that, Councillor Chang, and thank you very much for pointing that out, because one of the big cost elements for the city is actually maintenance, like potholes and repairs and salting and all those kinds of things. But actually, if you have more bike lanes, they're almost virtually or almost maintenance free. You don't have the same kind of wear and tear on the infrastructure, on the road infrastructures that you would on with vehicles, with cars. So it's good to look at these other alternatives, because in the end, you actually do save money. So please continue with the other thing that you were gonna point out.
Sure. And have you looked at the environment, climate, and forestry budget, which is available at toronto.ca/budget? And that would be the funding that the city has towards the climate plan that we have, which we call Transform TO. And in fact, did you know that in this budget, there are some investments that include the electric ferries that are coming to the city, as well as 2 electric fire trucks and more electric vehicles for the city, as well as TTC. So we are increasing our electrification across the city in support of Transform TO. And in fact, all the buildings that we're building, the newer ones, they're all exceeding standard green standards because of our commitment to reducing our contribution to greenhouse gases. So I'm just wondering if you've looked at some of those investments, because in fact, it is a very important priority for our city.
Well, I'm encouraged to hear that, and I think it's a great start, but definitely we need to do more, because it is an emergency. And all these processes take time to implement and to let people know. So I encourage you to expand those efforts, because they're a great start, but definitely more needs to be needed. And I appreciate that.
And my last question is, did you know that I regularly host a climate action roundtable of concerned local residents who then self-organize things like Repair Cafe, an annual bike ride to downtown, and other initiatives that help to bring climate to the forefront of our community?
I actually have participated in that. And in fact, what you bring up with one of the things you just mentioned is that for people who are cycling, we need more signage that are directed to cyclists, because if you want to expand out of, like, it's kind of difficult to find a route. I know that there's a map, which is very handy, but it certainly needs to have more encouragement for cycling. And yes, these points are very good, and I do appreciate your efforts, Councillor Chang. I really do, and I'd like to see them grow more. So definitely much more needs to be done, and those are great initiatives.
Thank you. I look forward to seeing you at our next Climate Action Roundtable. Take care.
Thank you.
Okay. I just wanted to add to that, Sherilyn.
Yes.
If you haven't had a look at the whole plan of Transform TO, that is our climate plan for the next 10-year stretch. Well, it started a couple of years ago, so it's there's still, 8 years or so of actions in there. It's worth having a look at the plan. It has its own page in the city's website. The reason I ask is I'm not sure if you're aware, in order to implement it, the work actually goes on across a number of divisions. That's the challenge. Some of the things happening in TTC are a result of council adopting Transform TO. So
Yes.
it really spans, but if you follow the plan, it gives you an idea of the work that is ongoing. This year, for instance, there are 25 different recommendations in Transform TO that are receiving additional funds. However small or large, it depends on the thing, but that there is actual action going on in the plan. It's hard to track reading our budget documents because you have to hunt for it in every division. So just having a look at the Transform TO page will give you the overview, and then you'll have an idea of the ongoing work. And then once a year, we get a report to council giving us the progress on that plan.
Yeah, because, you know, if I may add, you know, like what happened with Calgary, the water main being so outdated and breaking and the huge cost that it will take to repair it. And now all the proposed development that we're looking at, that the city is looking at for this area, we're putting a huge strain on those infrastructures, and then we are all affected. And these have to be looked at, and that's also affected by the climate. So,
Absolutely.
right? So,
Although I will tell you this, I've had a look into it and how that happened, and I can promise you at spending of about 1.3 billion a year in
tax
our
increase.
water program, we're not in anywhere near the same state of good repair condition under Toronto Water than we're seeing in Calgary, sadly. And the increases to our water rate are so that we can do that without debt. Because if you're reliant on debt, then you start putting off things that need to be done today. Thank you. That was a good
Thank you.
discussion. Thank you, Sherilyn.
Thank you. Have a
Okay.
good day.
You too. So councillors, we are done ahead of schedule. The deputy who hasn't spoken, I understand, may think that she is in the evening session, and she's certainly welcome to come there. I think we can fit her in the evening. So we will be adjourning a little bit early. I'm going to move a motion to receive all of the deputations, whether oral or in writing, on this subcommittee, and then we're able to adjourn. Can we have the receipt motion? Councillor Jane, do you want to move it?
I move that the Budget Subcommittee receive the public presentations on the 2026 capital and operating budgets for information.
Okay, all in favor? No opposed, that is carried. And our favorite motion, Councillor Myers, would you like to move adjournment of this session?
Oh, just,
Yeah, you don't have to read it.
Move to adjourn. Okay.
Yeah, all in favor. You can hang out in North York now until our evening session. Thanks, everyone.